since the election. And though many were disappointed by the results, you've let us know you appreciated our reporting and the reporting of those results in a calm and measured way.
Yeah, we have been especially thankful for the kind words we've received from those who voted for President Trump. And we're going to continue our best efforts to be fair and objective in reporting on the incoming administration.
Now, unfortunately, the next story does involve us personally a bit, but we still give you the facts while remaining objective.
So here they are. President-elect Donald Trump has selected Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida to serve as Attorney General and lead the Department of Justice. If confirmed by the Senate, he would head the department he has in the past called to be shut down.
I don't care if it takes every second of our time and every ounce of our energy. We either get this government back on our side or we defund and get rid of, abolish the FBI, CDC, ATF, DOJ, every last one of them if they do not come to heel. And I don't think it's too much to ask.
Also, if confirmed, Gaetz would lead the department that once investigated him for sex trafficking. In late 2020, the FBI started investigating allegations that Gaetz was involved in the trafficking of a 17-year-old girl. At the core of the case was testimony from a former Gaetz associate who is now serving an 11-year prison sentence for several federal crimes, including sex trafficking. But the investigation into Gaetz ended in February of 2023 with no charges filed. Gaetz abruptly announced he was resigning from Congress yesterday after Trump posted the AG nomination on social media. Multiple media outlets reported yesterday the House Ethics Committee was set to vote this week on releasing a report about him. Quoting from the Washington Post, Gaetz has been under investigation by the bipartisan committee for allegations that he may have engaged in sexual misconduct, illegal drug use, and accepted improper gifts. And now, more on the character of Matt Gaetz and how it connects to this show. Donald Trump began tweeting about widely discredited conspiracy theories about Joe after receiving documents given to Trump by Congressman Gaetz. That's according to former White House Communications Director Alyssa Farah Griffin. She revealed that information in 2022 during her deposition before the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th attack. She told lawmakers she was in the West Wing with Republican Congressman Jim Jordan, former White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany, and Gaetz when she noticed he had a folder with him. When she asked him what was in it, she says Gaetz pulled out conspiracy theories about Joe Scarborough. Farah Griffin said she then told Gaetz he could not put that in front of the president, right as he was getting ushered into the Oval Office. Farah Griffin said that the next morning, then President Trump started tweeting about those debunked conspiracy theories. Trump tweeted about those lies to his millions of followers for at least 5 times over the next 3 years. Those posts caused so much pain and emotional trauma for the widower of an aide who worked for Joe that the widower himself wrote an open letter to Jack Dorsey, the then CEO of Twitter, pleading with him to remove the posts from social media, from the platform, writing, quote, "My wife deserves better." Twitter never deleted the posts, responding in a statement that the tweets did not violate its terms of service.
They, of course, changed the terms of service the next day.
Some Senate Republicans yesterday were surprised and expressed doubts about Gaetz' nomination. We're going to get to more of those reactions in just a moment. But it may not matter because Donald Trump is demanding senators allow for recess appointments so that he can unilaterally select his cabinet members, arguing it takes too long to confirm nominees. Those are the facts. It goes without saying that we invite members of the incoming Trump administration to be on our show. And also, we look forward to discussing this issue and others face to face with President Trump himself. Along with Joe, Willie, and me, we have the host of Way Too Early, White House bureau chief at Politico, Jonathan Lemire, U.S. special correspondent for BBC News, Katty Kay, president of the National Action Network and host of MSNBC's Politics Nation, Reverend Al Sharpton, and NBC News national security editor David Rode, and also with us former U.S. attorney and MSNBC contributor Chuck Rosenberg. Great to have you all with us this morning.
So Willie, let's talk about the day yesterday. I mean, one shock after another that will have long-term, most Republicans and Democrats agreed, will have long-term negative impact on the United States. You can look at the AG selection. You can look at Tulsi Gabbard, DNI, which our allies have said just don't expect the sharing of any intel with the United States anymore, because, of course, she is constantly spread disinformation from Putin. Also, of course, many people concerned about her relationship with Assad in Syria. And then, of course, we also had the DOD pick, which retired generals and admirals to a person deeply concerned about not only his lack of experience, but also some of the extraordinarily hostile things that he's written, talking about Democrats as enemies from within and worse.
Yeah, he wrote that in a book not that long ago. That's not an old thought for Pete Hegseth, the man that Donald Trump has nominated to be Secretary of Defense. But you're right, for every Marco Rubio at Secretary of State and John Thune winning yesterday to become the majority leader of the United States Senate, which most people in Washington said, OK, we can live with those choices. John Thune, a highly respected guy across party lines in the Senate. Along comes a Tulsi Gabbard, who, as you said, at best is sympathetic to Russia and Syria. She was critical in the early days of Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the United States for provoking that somehow, always tilting toward Russia. And the same, as you said, goes for Syria and Assad. She paid a visit to him not so long ago. So deep concerns about her directing our national intelligence. And then in Matt Gaetz, this is the one that shook not just Democrats, but Republicans. And we're going to play some of that reaction in just a moment from people who just utterly stunned, not, on the other hand, well-liked in the United States Congress, and not just by Democrats, but by his Republican colleagues as well. He's someone, like a lot of Republicans, who talked about the weaponization of the Justice Department, about lawfare that is using the legitimate institutions of the legal system to attack people personally. Here you have it, actually. A lot of that was invented, of course, but Matt Gaetz is chosen for the very reason that Donald Trump would tell you, that he will go after Donald Trump's opponents, his perceived enemies as well. So, David Rode, let's swing over to you for reaction. What you're hearing from sources across the Justice Department and people who have worked in our legal community for years. What are they saying?
So yesterday I was actually in the Justice Department. It was before this announcement was made, and afterwards, there was sort of shock from people in the department. They were stunned by the choice, and it's a pattern of essentially Matt Gaetz, based on his past activity, will repeat a false narrative that fits Donald Trump's sort of personal political goals, and you know, that's dangerous. We need institutions that sort of operate on facts. The power of the Justice Department is tremendous, and that's the concern here. People are not talking about mass resignations. People are talking about staying in the department and doing their jobs. They've worked for Republicans and Democrats, but it was a shock. You know, there's calls for him not to be confirmed by the Senate, but it's this very dangerous rewriting of history and fact that appears that is what I believe will happen if he becomes Attorney General.
Yeah, so Jonathan Lemire, one of the things I heard repeatedly yesterday after this shock came down, and this was from Republicans, was that he won't make it through, and that perhaps Donald Trump threw this out there and said, okay, I'll let you shoot down Matt Gaetz in the Senate, but you got to give me X, Y, and Z, sort of as a strategic. The problem with that, as Mika laid out, is if he does recess appointments and he has a compliant Congress now, we know that, then it doesn't matter. There's no vote.
Yeah, there's a lot of things at play here. First, you're right. It can't be overstated just how stunning this announcement was. It can't be overstated how disliked Matt Gaetz is across Capitol Hill, both parties. There is no sense that he is qualified for this position. We heard Republicans and Democrats alike voice real concerns that he would not be able to do this job. There is, look, Donald Trump, it almost feels like a dare. People, daring Republicans, try to defy me. And yes, his initial picks were met with mostly acclaim from the GOP. The last few, particularly Gabbard and Gaetz, much less so. That is one of the theories out there, is that Gaetz maybe does get knocked down, but that's maybe the one that Senate Republicans can object to, allowing the others to get in. The timing here is also very striking. Just 2 days before the release of a House ethics report about Gaetz's conduct, because he is now suddenly resigned from Congress, which was not normally how this works. You usually keep your seat just in case you don't get confirmed, so you can fall back on your old job. But because he is resigned, that makes that probe go away. And now there are real questions as to whether or not that report will still see the light of day. So, Chuck Rosenberg, this is. Let's talk about that. If you think that report will see the light of day, whether you think that's part of the decision-making process here, with Trump perhaps doing Gaetz a favor by giving him cover to bow out of the House of Representatives, but also what it would mean if he is confirmed. There's real doubts about the recess appointment strategy. Thune said he might support it, but that was before he was elected. It would be sacrificing a lot of Senate power if they were to let Trump do this. But if Gaetz were to get in, what would that look like?
Wouldn't look good, Jonathan. You just mentioned that he is unqualified to the office, and you're exactly right. Of course he is. But in a sense, everybody's unqualified to that office. The work of the Department of Justice is so deep and so broad and so complex. Nobody comes in knowing everything about tax or antitrust or civil rights or civil work or criminal work or everything from the Federal Bureau of Prisons to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. So it's not just that he's unqualified, Jonathan. You look for three things, I think, in any attorney general. Republican, Democrat, male, female, black or white, absolutely meaningless. As long as they have one of these, or I should say all three of these things, right? Integrity, judgment, and independence. If you have those three things, we're fine. And if you don't have those three things, we're not. And, I first came in when Dick Thornburgh was the Attorney General of the United States, Republican from the Western District of Pennsylvania, had served as U.S. Attorney, had been a governor, a man of tremendous integrity and honor, intellect, passionate about the work of the department, understood the norms, followed by Janet Reno, who drove Bill Clinton crazy because of her independence. But it's exactly what the Department of Justice needed. Even Jeff Sessions, right, disappointed Donald Trump when he recused himself from stewardship of the investigation into Russian election interference. I am sure Joe Biden was unhappy with Merrick Garland when Hunter Biden was indicted, and when Mr. Garland appointed a special counsel to investigate Joe Biden's mishandling of classified information. Right. What they all have in common, all of these attorneys general, is that independence streak. And with Matt Gaetz, you get not just somebody who is wholly unqualified to the substance of the work, but to somebody who lacks integrity, judgment, and independence. So what does it look like, Jonathan, if he becomes the Attorney General of the United States? It's a train wreck.